Today, Trevor Bača. How do you pronounce your name exactly?
Bača.
Bača.
Yeah, it's Czech.
Okay. And Diana Snow. I'm very happy to have these brilliant composers today here. As you know, the Young Composers Forum is just a way to for young composers to present their music in a lecture context instead of just a performance. Here at NEC, we have a lot of performance opportunities, but we don't have this kind of chances to see young composers who are doing a great job to actually show us like their music and how they deal with any musical issues. So having said that, thanks for coming, and this is Trevor Bača.
Okay, could we make a deal where I get you guys to transpose to the center so that the sound is a little better, so I'm not like talking to the corner? I'll pass out scores, and it's almost like one score per person, so that's the cut-off, right? We have a score for shift. Okay, yeah, that's right, you know, landscape. So I wanted to say thanks for being invited up to the kind of lecture halls and stuff at NEC. I mean, I've been coming to Jordan Hall for concerts since I moved to Boston last year, and it's awesome, of course, but I've never kind of seen it inside of the Conservatory. It's great. It's very nice for you to install. I thought I'd start by kind of explaining a little bit about what I've been doing the last couple of years. I'm 35 years old. I was born in 1975. And when I did my undergrad, I went to Texas, UT in Austin. And I studied literary theory, I studied critical theory, and I was also studying composition. I've read music pretty much my whole life. And had a really weird experience doing composition at Texas. Kind of showed up and wanted to learn how to be Xenakis, and then hope to kind of go from there. That's how we planned. And that didn't go over real well with the faculty that I had access to. Cool. Okay, so just continuing the background here. So I kind of showed up and had sort of a rocky go of it in my undergrad studying composition. The lit analysis and critical theory stuff at Texas was awesome. It's still it's a really good place to do that. So I left after graduating, went to Darmstadt for the first time, which, I mean, you know, it's Darmstadt, but it's a way to meet all sorts of interesting musicians from all over the world. That was pretty cool. Went to North Africa for a while. Was studying Arabic at the time. I lived in Tunisia, and I hung out in the desert, figured out how to do that. Ran out of money and decided that it would be good to go home and like get a job, pay off some bills, student loans, that sort of stuff. So this is 1998. It's kind of the height of the first .com bubble, right? It was called a bubble for a reason, and the reason it was called a bubble is because there was a lot of money for tech at that time. And Austin's like Boston, actually, San Francisco, Seattle, a really good place to do tech stuff if that's what you want to do. I had no business going into tech. Like I had no CS training. None of that. Like my programming is pretty much limited to doing stuff in C and C++ for algorithmic music composition, stuff that I'd done in my undergrad classes with Russell Kingston. But I kind of passed myself off as a computer programmer when I got back because I needed the money. And one thing led to another, and it turned out to be like a really satisfying and interesting thing to do. And so I did not go to grad school right away. I kept thinking, well, I'll wait until I can find a place to do it. I would like to do my grad work in the US, but I'm not really sure where to go. I mean, the places that I would consider to be like UCSD, Columbia, Buffalo, but I just wasn't really ready. So what I did is got up at 5 in the morning a lot, year after year after year, and wrote every morning, because nobody calls you at 5:30 in the morning, as you may have noticed. It was 11:45 at night, you know, it's kind of a dicier time to be writing content. Then take a shower at 8:30, get in the car, and drive to the office and be there at 9, and that led to a really fulfilling career. Started off doing Unix development work, kind of straight out programming. led to user interface design and usability studies, go around and like take video footage of people using software, go back and analyze it frame by frame to see why people mess up when they use software, make changes, save people lots of time and money. That was kind of fun. Then started managing big software projects like getting large websites translated into Chinese and Arabic. Then back to doing statistical analysis inside of telephone networks, and then finally some more management. And so I developed some pretty interesting ideas about how information should flow by working in that context, and it fed directly into the way that I was thinking about music at the same time, right? I mean, you can imagine, so it was like, you know, get a 2.5 hour work block every morning to write score, and then all these other things, which other problems to solve during the day, some of which were very interesting, some of which were very difficult. So this is kind of this nice feedback loop, and you can see kind of why Xenakis would be a good starting point for me, right? Because he started as an engineer as well, and had a lot to say about it when we wrote the chapters for formalized music, so it kind of sustained me a little bit while I was doing both types of work. Austin is on this, I'm surprised constantly by how many people in Boston have never been to Texas. It's really interesting. I mean, we have a good connection at home to California. I think Austin sort of looks to San Francisco, much less so to the East Coast. So I constantly have to explain to people that Austin is not Houston. Houston is now the 3rd biggest city in the United States, but Austin is not Houston. Austin's on the same line of latitude exactly as Cairo, Egypt, and it's pretty warm. As I was saying before we started, this temperature that we have outside today is about the coldest that it ever gets at home. So we go jogging 365 days a year, go rowing on the road. This is where I went jogging for 10 years. I took a break after work before coming home and cooking. It's the Colorado River, which people call Town Lake. It's dammed 7 times either side of the city, like a series of blocks. So the level of the river can be kept exactly even. They used to have floods until the 80s and 90s when they got the last complete. So, yeah, so I kind of went out of hiding a couple years into that. 3 or 4 years ago, I started looking to get pieces performed instead of just writing them from my desk drawer. And started getting some performances mostly in Europe, and then finally a couple in the United States, San Diego, New York. And the opportunity came to finally do grad school and come here. And so I'm studying with Haya Cherman at Harvard, and she's absolutely the reason that I'm there. And it's been a really, really amazing experience. So I'm in the middle of my 2nd year of the 5 or 6 or whatever it is that they want us to stay there for. And I have learned that cowboy boots do not work when you step into icy cold puddles in Boston, and there's this thing called waterproofing that is like magic that you put on your shoes, and the tights for guys are called underwear, and then you need 3 different types of coat, and you go through them, and then one. So I mean, I've kind of been adapting. So now, I don't go jogging here, but I really like this view, and so when I've had friends come from home to see Boston, I kind of take them out to the harbor, wait until it gets dark and you can see the lights. I mean, I find the city to be incredibly beautiful, and I like finally living somewhere where I can use transit. Sold my car, got rid of that, right? Finally feel like I'm living in a real urban environment. That's nice. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to staying here for a while. Okay, so let's listen to the piece, and before we do that, so the beginning of the score has a bunch of words. There's a bunch of technical instructions about how you make some of the sounds. And I'll go over just a couple of those so you know what's going on with a little bit. I come in and have a score. One of these, just for the time. And so here's some kind of fancy book that does the beginning of the score. So you pronounce the name of this piece, Lidera Spain. Think G-N-E at the end in French. It's a palatal Y in Hungarian. It's the Hungarian word for what's Irrlicht in German, which I think in English is usually will-o'-the-wisp, although I didn't know this word when I started. So there's this thing that happens, this real thing, it's not magic necessarily, where you're somewhere where there's methane gas, so stuff has died. You're in a swamp, you're in a forest, next to certain bodies of fresh water. And methane is highly combustible. If you look at it the wrong way, it catches on fire. And so you can get like low burning flame, which is usually blue. Sometimes it has this pinkish or yellowish color to it. It just kind of appears in the dark, somewhere spooky, like you're out camping or whatever, and you can just kind of see this stuff from a distance. There used to be more of that stuff in the kind of the forests of northern Europe, and so the idea that kind of irrelation would lead you the wrong way is that you'd see this stuff at night and think, oh good, it's a campfire or home or something warm, and you go chase after it, and of course there's nothing there, right? It's like this completely empty thing that attracts you anyways. And in the best stories, which are German, you die because you're being led into a swamp off the path, and so you got, your hunt for something that you understood that would make you feel comfortable turned out to be empty and nails you. And that's kind of what this the starting point for the piece. So phenomenologically, what's going on is I got really interested in flashes of pink and yellow and blue light, which for me was more than enough to spend a year writing a piece on. And so what's going on in the material, yeah, why not? What's going on in the materials is that you have, if you look at any page of this four past the preface, yeah, there's some conventional layout for the piano on a couple of staves. And then I've also split out the hands on the violin, and then split out the breath from the fingers on the flute, which a lot of people have done now. And my purpose in doing that sort of stuff is to get a certain type of friction within parts and especially then between parts, which the rhythm celebrate a little bit, so that you can have things happen like the flutist making sounds like in a rhythm that's different to how she is dealing with the keys on the instrument, right? So you maybe get a couple of key changes inside of that, and so what you get these momentary flashes of real pitch, followed by some stuff that's not real pitch, but definitely has its own color because sounds different than right? And so it's kind of like the idea of color counterpoint that got worked into it. And so for me, if there is a mapping back to the idea of the piece, it maybe is that in these sorts of moments of friction inside of parts and between parts, you have these flashes that work exactly like these sort of imagined flashes of color that you might see later. So let's listen. It's 15 minutes, and then I'll just talk about a few things and you can ask questions. Oh, yeah.